Okay, let's do one word. How did it feel for you to watch that debate?
Like having my appendix removed without anesthesia.
That's not one word, but okay.
Like eating my cat.
Also not one word.
To quote Mr. T in Rocky, pain.
Uneasy is the correct answer. I'm very disappointed at the multi-word answers to a very simple question, but I get the picture.
Have you met journalists, Chuck?
Yeah. You're just wordy people and you can't help it. This is Impromptu from Washington Post Opinions, and this week we're talking about what else? The first presidential debate between candidates Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. We want to talk about what we saw. I'm Charles Lane, Deputy Opinions Editor, and I'm here with several of my colleagues to get into it.
I'm Jim Geraghty, a contributing columnist at The Post, the senior political correspondent of National Review, and a deeply disappointed New York Jets fan.
I'm McArdle, the staff libertarian, and I don't follow sports, so I am never disappointed.
I'm Dana Milbank, and I also write a column in this here Washington Post.
So this was a big moment for the 2024 race. What do we know today that we didn't know yesterday? And we'll start with you, Jim.
For the Trump campaign, a terrible performance. Disastrous, debacle, dumpster fire. That's just the D words. I do wonder if this is actually going to change the numbers of this election, either nationally in the swing states, that much. I think people have priced in that Trump sounds like a maniac a lot of the time. He's in this race not because he's so eloquent or because he's such a great debater. He's in it because people are frustrated with the status quo. And I don't know if Kamala Harris did as much as she would have wanted to do, separating herself from the status quo of Biden. But by and large, she was poised, she was cool, she was confident. They got exactly the contrast that the Harris campaign wanted to see. And now we see if it actually moves any numbers very much.
Yeah, I think she did a very good job baiting him into melting down. He can never resist an opportunity to soothe his wounded vanity. But like Jim, I actually am not sure that this changes much, precisely because we didn't learn that much that we didn't know. We knew Harris was basically sane. We knew that Trump is a maniac if you give him any room to run. What we don't know, what is her actual plan for taxing unrealized capital gains? What is she going to do about tax reform next year? What specific things other than the $6,000 extended tax credit is she going to do to realize her vision of moving forward into the future with joy?
Megan, hats off to you for being the first one to mention unrealized capital gains. Dana?
Oh, well, Megan stole my answer. It was all about unrealized capital gains. So I'll come up with something else then. You know, I don't think Trump was that bad for Trump. I think it's basically the same Trump who shows up at all these debates. It was just as bad at the last one. It's just that Biden was so much worse that's all we focused on here. Yes, Harris was very good at baiting him. But here's where I think it could matter is, Harris was undefined for a lot of people. And Trump had helped things along by constantly talking about how stupid she is. Dumb and stupid Kamala Harris, or Kamala Harris, as he might have said. And then, lo and behold, she's in the debate, and not only is she not dumb and stupid, but wow, had she done her homework, and, it was just, abundant preparation and just really, really good at bringing out the worst in Trump.
The broad consensus, and I think we're hearing some of it reflected here, is that Kamala Harris won as much as anyone can win such a thing. Anyway, that's what the Snap polls say, and it's what the Post focus group of swing voters said overwhelmingly. But is there anything you guys think she didn't do so well?
She didn't define herself. I mean, if you look at the polls of undecided voters, what they want to know is what's she actually going to do in office? How will she be different from the Biden administration? And it's all very well to say, I am not Joe Biden. Yes, obviously, you are not Joe Biden. But how far off are you from his policies? And they don't want to say that for obvious reasons, but I think at some point they have to. They have to define her not just as, the nice person who isn't Donald Trump. They have to define her as a positive entity, because if they don't, she's going to be defined by the very extreme left positions she took in the 2019 primary, which are going to be running on a continuous loop in ads in every swing state. She has to come out and not just kind of have her aides quietly deny that. She has to be out front talking about, here is what I will do, and this is how we move forward into the future together.
For 7 weeks, the Harris campaign has been running on vibes, coconut trees, Brett Summer, all this fun stuff. And I think that's taken her as far as it's going to take her. That there's really time to put meat on the bones. And as I said, every time she'd say, I am not Joe Biden, fact check, true. But there's really not a sense of what the policies are going to be different. And it's not like it's going to be the same thing with a more, charismatic and significantly younger messenger for pretty much the same message. And that's gotten her to roughly neck and neck in the polls. And that's not bad, but that's probably, would you want to bet your mortgage that she's going to have 270 electoral votes? I don't think that's a safe, probably, maybe.
I would like to gently and very respectfully disagree with my colleagues. I think it's sort of a journalistic disease to say everybody's waiting for Kamala Harris to put out her policy positions when what you're hearing from voters in focus groups and elsewhere is nobody really is asking or caring about policy. Clearly, if they did care about policy, Donald Trump has for now 9 straight years been trying to come up with a health care plan. And what is it? Last night he said he had the concept of a plan, the framework of a plan. So he's not getting marked down for this. I just don't think, I agree with you guys in the sense that I would like to see the policy. I would like to know what's going to be happening. It just doesn't feel at all like this is an election about policy. And to the extent Harris can say this is an election about that crazy guy over there who thinks people are eating your cats and dogs and me, I think is sufficient.
See, now let me respectfully push back, which is that I think that that's a journalistic disease. We all find him repulsive. We think that's insane. We can't imagine voting for that guy on stage. But he's been like this for decades, but he's been like this since 2016, and he's neck and neck in the polls with her. And I don't think it was a big revelation to voters that he's like that. And I think Democrats count on running on, you can't possibly elect that insane moron who tried to steal an election. And that is not a winning campaign, as Joe Biden discovered.
So going to last night, I didn't think that Harris needed to spend much time ripping down Donald Trump. I think the case against Donald Trump is self-evident. And honestly, the guy who made the best case against Donald Trump last night was the exploding volcano in a blue suit next to her. So she didn't really need, there was a lot of time of kind of gilding the lily of, hey, did you know this person next to me is, ranting and raving and doesn't have the temper? It was great when he said, he was challenged on his temperament. And he says, and Joe Biden hates you. Yeah, that was very persuasive. That really shows that you're cool, calm, collected, exactly the guy you want in a crisis. But that's already been out there. And almost every swing state poll, almost every national poll has it within 3 percentage points, within the margin of error. So if anything's going to change between now and November, Harris needed to do something different, and I don't think she did that last night.
So I have a kind of idiosyncratic choice for her least effective moment. It was when she started invoking Goldman Sachs and the Wharton School of Business and Mitt Romney and all these sort of,
and Dick Cheney.
establishment figures to sort of vouch for her. And there are people out in America who to say Goldman Sachs is like mentioning Dracula, and I thought that was kind of that betrayed to me a little in the bubbleness of the establishment from Kamala and, just something that she kind of can't escape. It's just so who she is and the world in which she lives. Having said that, of course, I generally agree with people that overall she was the better debater. So, let's keep talking about the side-by-side comparison. This is the first time the two of them have ever been in the same room, apparently, ever met personally. I don't think they've even had a Zoom meeting. So what was the contrast? What stood out to you on that front? I think it's a pretty easy question, so we'll start with Dana.
I will give you a simple answer, Chuck. What was, the contrast between them, I think was pretty obvious, and Jim got at it there with the exploding volcano versus the sane person. I think we also need to put it in the context of what happened immediately after the debate. On the one hand, you have Trump himself bursting into the spin room to try to correct whatever had just happened for the last hour and 35 minutes. You had even, the likes of Brett Baer and Brit Hume on Fox acknowledging that he had essentially lost the debate. And then you have Taylor Swift coming out, which actually seems to have eclipsed the entire debate itself. So I think those are the contrasts right there.
I'm not sure debate watchers and Swifties, to use one of Harris's favorite Venn diagram descriptions, I'm not sure there's a huge overlap in there.
Right, but I mean, probably more people will hear the Taylor Swift news than anything about the debate. Sorry.
Agreed. On Truth Social, Trump had been ranting about how Harris was going to stand on a box, and because of her heels, she appears taller than she really. Apparently, she's like 5'3" or something. First of all, credit to Harris for going for the handshake. Trump was going straight behind the podium, was not interested in that. Did shake the hand when she came over to him. But I didn't find the stature, the height difference to be, oh my goodness, she looks so tiny compared to him or anything like that. And also, if stature is going to be one of the ways you expect to win, don't lose your cool, and don't imply that your opponent's words are what caused you to get shot in the head. Like that was, again, there was such a stark contrast there that any other aesthetic advantage that Trump was going to have was pretty quickly nullified.
Yeah, I think the contrast was Chaos Muppet and Order Muppet. It was Animal and Bert on the same debate stage together. But I actually was interested in a moment where I thought there was less contrast than I expected, which was when Kamala Harris kept saying, world leaders are laughing at you. And I think that was a successful line baiting him. And I have no doubt that world leaders are indeed telling her that he is terrible. We are terrified of him. And yet it sounded like Trumpian BSing. I don't know if you remember when he has this habit of, all
everyone's
these people are calling me
to
tell me that I am the best person ever. It's all your girlfriends in Canada are phoning in to Niagara Falls, sorry, to tell you what a wonderful dude you are. And it sounded a bit like that, because of course, if they hadn't said it, she could still say it. No one's going to come out and deny they said this, And so I actually thought that was not great for her, because it moves her just a little bit in the Trumpian direction, and stay away from that.
I want to talk more about some of the most important moments of the debate and how they might make a difference in the last days of this campaign. But first, let's take a quick break. Welcome back. I'm Charles Lane, and this is Impromptu. Did you guys think Trump had any strong moments? That's a hard question, so we'll start with Dana.
That you have not earned back any credit in my book with that, Chuck Lane. Yes, I mean, I am worried about my pets, so I'm very glad that he followed J.D. Vance in bringing up all those people who are coming to eat our cats and dogs. No, unfortunately, I don't think he had any particularly strong moments. His closing was strong. I think in each part of this, it was basically hit a button and hear a little piece of his stump speech.
I think what's got to be so frustrating for Republicans is you can see the outlines of a much better performance and maybe even a race-winning performance by tying her to the last 3.5 years. And a point you said, you've been there in his closing statement, you've been there for 3.5 years. Why haven't you done any of this stuff? Where, and you keep love, some version of what do you want to do that Biden doesn't want to do? What is he not letting you do? My suspicion is that the differences between Biden and Harris on policy are generally pretty small. The average American wouldn't notice them. There's great potential there, and he did get to that at the very end. But also, it's just so overshadowed by his performance for the rest of the night.
Megan?
I actually thought he was stronger than her in the opening few moments when he sounded kind of fluent and very confident and she sounded weak. The other moment where I thought he turned the tables very effectively was when he said, "When would you ban abortion? What restrictions would you accept?" And she's like, "Oh, come on." She didn't answer the question because she does not want to say that she would restrict abortion at any time, including in the 8th and 9th month, which is not a majority position, even within the Democratic Party, much less in the general electorate.
Yeah, I'm with you, Megan, on that. I thought he kind of put her on the spot there. He was breaking the rules by directly addressing her, but nevertheless, it was a strong moment for him. But overall, I think the big picture is more or less what Jim said. All these moments that Trump let slide, where she left herself open to a good counterattack. And, and the other point is we're joking about the cats and dogs thing because it's so off the charts crazy. But I want to just drill down on what's particularly upsetting about that. Like what he's talking about is a town in Ohio where 12,000 Haitians have been settled really in a very short period of time. This is a completely made up internet thing that he just tapped into. It's very racist. It's false. And yet, on the other hand, guys, there's a real issue there. Like, what does it mean for a town of 55,000 people within a very short period of time being asked to take in and house and provide health care and education for so many people who speak a different language practically overnight? And that's what's so frustrating to me about that moment in the debate is like we get past this cats and dogs thing. There's an actual question, like what can be done about that, right? And of course, Trump is happy to demagogue that, but Harris kind of ignored it too. And I just think that's, in a way, that characterizes kind of what's wrong with this whole campaign. Okay, Kamala has challenged Donald Trump to a second debate. Let's quickly get the three of your take on this question. Should he accept the challenge?
Absolutely. We have for a long time, we had 3 presidential debates and 1 vice presidential debate. I think because Biden's no longer the nominee, that one doesn't count. And we should have we should have 2 more presidential debates between Trump and Harris. I don't think we'll get them, though.
I agree that we won't get them. I think we should have them just because I enjoy political theater, and that was a good show, and I'd like to see another one like that. And if we do get another one, I expect you will get the sort of Trump on sedatives version.
Yeah, I mean, I too would love to pop the popcorn, break out the jumbo box of Raisinets, and settle down for another scenery-chewing performance. But I think Trump's campaign would be insane to accept. They should just let this go and call it, take the L, as they say on the internet.
Guys, thank you so much for putting up with me through this episode of Impromptu. We'll see you next time.
It was an ordeal, Charles, but thank you.
Before you go, we want to play you something. It's part of a Washington Post opinion series called Who is Government? About the individuals who make the vast, complex machine that is the federal government run. Michael Lewis, the author of Moneyball, The Big Short, and many other books, wrote the first story in this series and recruited 6 other authors to parachute into the federal government and find something interesting. Here's a little tease from Michael's conversation with one of those writers, Casey Sepp, about the story she brought back.
Ron Walters, just an extraordinary American. Ron and his team, they look after, nearly 4 million veterans from the Revolutionary War forward, and they will tend to your grave in perpetuity. It turns out they do that work better than any of the companies we associate with extraordinary customer service. Ron and his team exceed all of them, kind of by leaps and bounds.
It's really interesting that this guy has figured out how to run this operation in a way that in some ways is more impressive than any other operation in the United States. And like the Harvard Business School is not all over him. Steph Curry goes to a public school to say hi for 10 minutes, and it's the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle. This guy runs the cemeteries for our war dead for decades in this impeccable way, and no one even knows his name.
Well, I just think there's such a bias against the bureaucracy. We are not equipped to hear the stories of what it does well. I think people like Ron, he always wants to talk about other people. He always wants to talk about the mission, not himself. And, I think that makes sense. Again, characterologically, if you wanted credit, if you wanted to be on the front page of the paper, you wouldn't work for the federal government.
That's right. That's right.
I feel really lucky to have gotten the time to think about Ron and his work, but also to just think deeply about who we are as a country. And Ron and his colleagues are working really hard to make sure this is a perpetual project. And we think about freedom and sacrifice, and not in the cheap and easy way it's talked about in political campaigns, but in the deep and meaningful way it's embodied in these places.
Listen to the entire conversation between Michael Lewis and Casey Sepp on our website. And you can read the full story about Ron Walters and the others in this series on The Washington Post. We'll put a link to all of it in our show notes. Thanks for listening to Impromptu. This episode was produced by Hadley Robinson and edited by Damir Marusik, Chris Sulentrop, and Allison Michaels. It was mixed by Sam Baer. Special thanks to Millie Mitra and Deirdre Byrne. We love hearing from you. Email your feedback to impromptu@washpost.com.